Hello again, my friends. Good morning to all of you. I'm barely awake, and these are some of the first words that I've said for my day, but I thought I would start the video off with a morning. Yes, I said that on purpose. Yeah, I want to start the morning off with a video. I'm sitting here in my car. I just got to work. I leave early so I can avoid traffic. So I got about 10 minutes or so. I'm sitting here listening to Tame Impala. Tame Impala is an interesting artist, and I've just been kind of rocking that lately. I like all different types of music, pretty much. I've thought about it a lot when people are like, what don't you like? And I will say, honestly, I'm not, as much as people find it surprising, I'm not a fan of blues. I'm also not a fan of country. But here's the thing, I love some blues and I love some country. And I've realized it's authenticity that I'm after. It's not really the music itself. The beats matter, the music matters, but not as much as knowing an artist put his heart and soul into something. Because I like seeing humans create things that mean something to them. It's kind of like building a business. I'm never impressed by a person who has a lot of money if they're doing something that they either don't love or something that's not useful to society or really useful to people in general. Now, there may be some things that, hey, that's just fine. It's useful to them. But I just stopped at a Plaid Pantry to pick up some juice. And I was talking to the cashier, and she said, oh, 379 pennies. And I said, oh, here's 500 pennies. And then I started joking around about when we used to, I was like, yeah, I remember when I used to go down and pay for my candy in pennies. And she says, yeah, or I'd take back bottles and cans. I lived in Oregon growing up. We had a 5-cent deposit. So we'd collect all our cans, we'd take them down to the store, get the money, $5 or whatever, and buy some stuff. Well, I told her the story about how when I was going to my first year of middle school, and I discovered that I can go down and buy a handful of those candies, because she was talking about how there used to be penny candies and nickel candies, and I was like, yeah, actually, I discovered that I could go into 7-Eleven, I could pick up a bag full of these candies for a nickel. I would take them to school, and then in class I would ask, the other kids would know I'm the candy dealer, and I would sell candy to them for a quarter, which isn't a huge markup. I mean, 5 times, but, they were willing to pay for it. They knew that there was a risk of me getting caught, or the fact that hey, if you want candy, there it is. You just got to pay for it. And I realized that was my first business at 12 or 13. No, god dang. No, that was not my first business. My first business was when I was mowing lawns at about 11 years old, 10 or 11 years old. I totally forgot about that. I'd go around the neighborhood, just walk around and knock on doors and ask people if they wanted their lawn mowed. And this, they'd usually give me $10. Now, mind you, this was back in 1988, 87. So $10 for a kid was quite a bit. Even today, people don't want to pay $10 to kids to mow their lawn. But there was this one guy down the street who had a little more money and a bigger yard, and he'd pay me $20. And I remember just getting that money and being able to go out with my friends and buy things and realizing the value of work, the value of providing a service, the value of providing something that people want and getting paid for it feels good. Fast forward, and about the only thing that I really took on a career doing was carpentry, and that was just by chance. I'll tell you, I don't know this for a fact. I've never looked at any data whatsoever, but I'm going to guess that probably over 90% of carpenters out there who are, say, over the age of 40, if you ask them, why did you choose to become a carpenter? They'll just look at you with a blank stare. Be like, well, what do you mean? This isn't the kind of job that when we were young, they had some trade schools, but it wasn't something people really knew about or, did. If you wanted to, you didn't want to work in construction or in carpentry You got hired on as a grunt laborer for minimum wage, hauling away materials, cleaning up crap in the properties, and eventually somebody allowed you to watch over their shoulder while they cut a board. And then you learned how to use a saw, and then they gave you a chance to do it yourself. There's a very difficult area you have to navigate to become a carpenter, a good carpenter. And that area is the fact that you have to work, so you can't spend your time just learning and getting paid. But if you only work, then you're not going to learn anything. And I had this one older carpenter. He was actually, in retrospect, he was about my age, actually younger than me. But at the time, I was like, 20. And he could tell that I had some, a brain. I mean, I'm not a dumb guy. I'm not a genius, but I could figure shit out pretty damn quick. And that's something I've always sold myself with when I start new jobs, is the fact that I can, if I don't know how to do it, I'll learn it. After I'd been doing various carpentry and construction for a long time, we were doing this really nice remodel on a house in this nice town, and they wanted a special curved staircase that, went down around the corner, and it was dropped off on one side and went up on the other side. So there's a wall here and then a wall down there. And they wanted to run her carpet down it. And it was a recurve, so it goes down and around a corner, then kind of curves back slowly. So the handrail goes down around like an S shape and then has like a volute on the end. All these pieces of handrail, called bread loaf handrail, this typical handrail you see. If you look down the profile, it looks like a bread loaf. You would have to cut each piece to fit perfectly. So you're cutting the end to fit the little volute that wraps around. And all of this shit, if you make one mistake, you've just ruined like $100 maple piece of volute. I mean, that's not to mention all of the wrought iron, everything, and I won't go in here into detail, but let's just say that I didn't know how to do it. The boss asks who wants to tackle this, and nobody wanted to do it. And I said, I'll do it. So I went home. I stopped by Barnes & Noble, which still existed, I think, at that time, or Borders, one of those, and I looked in the construction section and tried to find a book. Lo and behold, I think it was in the discount section, I found a book called Handrails and Staircases. And on the cover, there was a carpenter sitting there working on the part I needed to work on. The cover had the exact staircase pretty much that I was working on. Just meant to be. I went home and I studied that thing. I read it several times, learned as much as I could, and went back to work and I built it. It was one of my, maybe it was my magnum opus in a way, as far as construction, where I was really let loose. But everything was made of cherry. Everything was cherry. The handrail was cherry, all the parts on the side. So it was pretty badass, dude. I'm glad that I had the opportunity. And I'm glad to have the opportunity to share with y'all. Looks like my buddy's here working too, so that was my ramble for the morning. I'll be seeing y'all on the flip side. Just wanted to have a quick chat before I start. Peace and love.